teams evolve, Newcastle don't, you stand still or go backwards.
Geordie Journo's back here at the new look Newcastle United Media Centre, where we've been speaking to Eddie Howe on a windy deadline day. I hope you can hear us properly.
I made the mistake of leaving our
state-of-the-art mic
mic at home, so we've got another mic here. It's makeshift. I'm presuming you can't still hear, but if there is noises of wind, then that's why, which isn't the best time to not be able to hear the Geordie Journos on our...
But technical issues out the way. Transfers, another T, that's what you want to be hearing about. Not at Tottenham either, who Newcastle play on Sunday. Transfers, it was a 45-minute grilling almost of Eddie Howe.
It was a grilling.
This morning. Well, watch it back. I mean, you wouldn't get the full 45 minutes, a bit was cut off at the end. But yeah, Eddie Howe was asked numerous questions. I don't have the exact figure, but I'd say it was upwards of probably 20, 25 questions about transfers.
Yeah.
Did he give much away? No. But I think he was asked a lot, and it doesn't sound overly promising.
No, so his first response was, in terms of deadline day, they remain active. They will remain active until it closes at 11 o'clock tonight. But
active because they're trying to get Jamal Lewis out on loan.
Well, yeah, he said they'll be active both ways. Obviously, I mean, he pretty much admitted that it was essentially unlikely they were going to bring someone in because. And he's never said his name publicly and never will, despite being pressed, but it's the Mark Guehi deal, which has obviously fallen flat in the last 24 hours. So Newcastle's deadline day, where they bring someone in, hinges on that situation changing. Now what has to happen for that to change? Well, Crystal Palace have to lower their demands. Obviously they've had an injury themselves, which in the Carabao Cup on Wednesday, which has seemed to have complicated talks. So it all came to the final day. Newcastle were being risky by letting it go at the final day. Palace in the end have turned around and said, nope, we're not going to sell him for the price that you want to pay for him. And Newcastle have been left in a ridiculous situation where they're going to go into, they're already in the new season, but they're going to play the first half of the Premier League season without strengthening the start 11. They've signed 2 outfield players, Lloyd Kelly being one who, maybe does improve the start 11, but it isn't exactly a big sign, if you like. It was a free transfer ultimately.
Of a player he knew, by the way.
Yes.
It's real bargain bin, bottom of the barrel transfer. No disrespect to Lloyd Kelly.
No,
that was a smart signing to kickstart the summer. That has no reason to
that
be
cannot
as good as it got.
That's Newcastle's Lloyd Kelly, as it stands, is Newcastle's marquee signing.
It's ridiculous. And that's no disrespect to Lloyd Kelly,
I wish.
who we believe will be a good sign, good piece of business by Newcastle, by all accounts. But that can't be. That is going back 5 years. That's
it is. It's a sign you would make under the latter part of Mike Ashley. It's like signing. It was like signing Brian Fraser on a free transfer when Mike Ashley decided to sign players out over the age of 23, and Steve, well, I think it was one of his final transfer windows. But I mean, I'm just standing here now. I feel really disappointed the fact that Newcastle are heading into a new season without a player that immediately improves the start 11. You've got Eddie Howe figures at the football club, like Darren Eales, etc., came out and said this summer that they want to be competing for Europe this year, and you've got to evolve as a squad. You've got to sign new players that take your team forward. They haven't done that. So how can we stand here now and say the expectation is to go and qualify for Europe this year? Because we're basing this, and we're basing Newcastle United's expectations on the fact they can't get Europe off something they've done 2 years ago. Yeah. Newcastle, in many ways, I think, have stood still as a team. You look at that start 11 on the first couple of games of the season. Okay, Lloyd Kelly's came in. You had Lewis Hall, who was here last summer. A lot of that team is players that they've had here for nearly 2 years. Gordon, that was 6 months after the 2 year period. Newcastle, in terms of their squad, have stood still, and other teams have evolved around them. West Ham, Aston Villa have spent really well this summer. So when other teams evolve, Newcastle don't. You stand still or go backwards, and that's what I feel happens this transfer window. I understand the argument for the right players, but they've had the best part, well, they've had best part of 3 or 4 months to go and sign the right players. So okay, I like Mark Guehi, right? We can't get Mark Guehi. So who's A, B, and C on that list? Oh, sorry, who's B, C, and D on that list?
Yeah. Which Eddie Howe alluded to Newcastle had done, but the way it's transpired, it just doesn't feel like it's happened that way. If Mark Guehi doesn't look like it's happening right, quick, there's another lad ready that can pursue, and it sounded like Mark Guehi or bust. Even though Eddie Howe refuted that claim.
He did refute that claim. He said that they have looked at several other options. But who are the several options? I think I can know one off the top of my head. Tosin Adebayo, if that's how I pronounce his second name. I know it
would have been a free transfer.
It would have been a free transfer. And to be fair, look, in hindsight now, that I got him, they probably would have been able to go and get a right forward. But then they've ended up, in the end, sort of tying between a right forward and a centre-back, thinking they can go and get Mark Guehi. Got neither. And they find themselves, as I say, on the day of the deadline day, where the only chance they will sign a Mark Guehi, which if there's going to be a sign today, I think it probably will be him. But I'm not saying that's going to. I think it will happen. I think that deal is in many ways dead. Maybe not dead, but certainly in major doubt. And it's
just at an impasse, isn't it? It's stalemate. Unless Palace go and accept something that is already on the table for Newcastle, that deal won't happen. And given Palace have been dealt a fresh injury blow, all signs are pointing to that deal not happening. You never know in a transfer window. But
the Palace are under no financial pressure to sell whatsoever. They got a good £60 million for Michael Elise, and they sell Jochen Anderson, which at the time when Jochen Anderson was sold to Fulham, there was a general impression that ended Newcastle's hopes of signing Mark Guehi. Now that was played down, saying it didn't have an impact. I think getting towards the final week of the transfer window, Crystal Palace have just picked another injury. The Joachim Andersen probably in many ways, although they insist it wasn't directly, was an impact as well. They had the window to go and get Mark Guehi. They waited, they kept on negotiating, which negotiations, they want to negotiate the best price. I think Mark Guehi's asking prices went too high too soon, but they persisted with it, and they haven't got it. Well, I haven't got him, and probably won't get him, which is a massive frustration, because as I say, that starting 11 or that team in many ways I think is stood still, and it's a big ask for players that have been here, although have done great things in terms of qualifying for the Champions League, to go that again with no fresh faces. Because even like say Man City, okay, it might take one player, but every year they're signing players as well to keep staying at the top. In football, okay, you might have good players, but you need to bring in fresh faces and a bit of fresh impetus into the squad, and I don't feel like they've done that probably this summer, and I don't feel like they really did that last summer as well, if I'm being brutally honest. Team Livermento and Lewis Hall, by the end, Team Livermento and England International now, by the end did make an impact. Obviously Sandro Tonali was the main one. That was circumstances that was unforeseen in terms of him being banned for 10 months. But that all leads to the picture for the best part. As I say, for the best part of 2 years, Newcastle haven't really had a significant signing to make an impact in that team.
I think I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but in the results, all that matter at the end of the day, Newcastle could go on to have a successful season. They've started the season, despite performance-wise leaving a lot to be desired, started the season relatively well in terms of results. But the past two transfer windows, January and this summer, letting the club almost stand still, stagnate slightly, is such a disrespect to your Alexander Isaks, your Bruno Guimaraes, who have bought into this project and dedicated so far the best years of their career, knowing fine well they could probably play for any club in world football, and now they're willing to stay at Newcastle, stick by Newcastle, who are unable through PSR, through various reasons, and unwilling, I wouldn't say unwilling because they've tried, but haven't been able to strengthen and build a team around those two players in particular. It moves forward with them and progresses with them, and I think that is disappointing, because now you risk those players dedicating the best years of their career to finishing in and around Europe and not actually having something tangible at the end of it, which is a real disappointment. I'm speaking hypothetically in terms of the future. Hopefully Newcastle make a success of it. It's just that's my feeling at the moment. It seems really disappointing.
What message does that send? I mean, that's the part after all this. What message does that send out? You've signed for an ambitious football club. You've got two players there you mentioned who are capable of going to the very, very top, and in a team that could essentially be lingering in around 8th again, because they haven't took the players to take them on again to the next level. I think that's a big concern, that if the season doesn't play out the way that we all hope it does, and they go and qualify for Europe, and they have a cup run again, then you're looking in 12 months time, and you might be having to sell those players because they want to go elsewhere, and understandably so, because they're two top class players who deserve to be playing at the top. And Newcastle haven't necessarily, although the owner last year, not the owner, the chairman Yasser Rahman came out last year, famous quote, said they want to be number one. Ever since then, there hasn't really been
anything to suggest anything to.
And I get it. PSR and Eddie Howe's mentioned it. I would love to count how many times he mentioned. Eddie Howe mentioned PSR a lot in there, and of course we all know that is a massive, massive concern, and it is holding several clubs back. But they showed with the Mark Guehi deal, the money they were willing to spend.
Which Eddie Howe told you?
Which I asked, because you kept talking about PSR, and I asked, well, you mentioned this PSR situation, Eddie, but is it true that the club are willing to commit a substantial amount of money to sign a player? He said, yes, that's true. And then he talked about the right players. If it's not the right players, then we won't do it, because ultimately it has a knock-on effect in the future transfer windows. And I get that to some extent, but kicking the can down the road for 6 months, Newcastle might go and get Mark Guehi for cheaper in January. It might play out that way. But the pressure's on these 6 months of the season to almost just get by. And it shouldn't be like that. A club that wants to be number one, wants to be ambitious, wants to transfer trophies, wants to compete for Europe, shouldn't just get by. I thought them days were behind Newcastle. They just got by under Mike Ashley. Obviously it's better than Mike Ashley. They're at the right end of the table these days. But I would say this has been the worst transfer window since the Mike Ashley era. And if you put this transfer window in the Mike Ashley era, it would actually it would fall in line.
It doesn't look out of place. It's free transfers, signing 2 goalkeepers. It's not good. And I mean, hopefully Newcastle, they've still got a good squad, as Eddie Howe stressed. It hasn't transformed in a good couple of years, really.
Yeah.
Sandro Tonali's probably the last signing where you go, yeah, he probably strengthens the starting 11. He's a bit of a statement signing, but then we know what happened there. So yeah, they've been unlucky in some ways, but ultimately they've promised a lot and delivered very little.
Yeah, no, it's fair. There's a big frustration among the fan base because of the lack of signings, and I don't think fans can be criticised for that. As I say, new ownership, ambitions to be the best, compete at the top, and the actions haven't really shown that. I mean, I get the argument to some extent. The right players at the right price, and I get all that, because you don't want to sign bad players, and in the PSR world, you can't really afford to commit a lot of money to someone that doesn't really fit. But the club's management have had months and months and months to compile a list of targets, and I'll pick out 2 positions which are the obvious positions to strengthen. It's a centre half, because you've currently got Emil Kraft playing there, who I like Emil Kraft, but is a right back by trade. Done a really good job there.
And a bottom half Premier League right back at best, with all due respect.
And then you've got a right forward position that hasn't been strengthened since the takeover, and Newcastle have strengthened neither, which it's a big ask to expect these players to keep on punching above their weight when you're not able to, say, strengthen key positions. You've got 2 obvious positions to strengthen, and they've had
minimum,
and they've had months and months and months to come up with a list of targets. And okay, you might not get your number 1 target, but surely there's enough planning there for you to be able to sign somebody who will improve the team. Given them 2 positions, and this isn't being disrespectful to Jacob Murphy, Almiron, or Emil Kraft, for example, but them 2 positions, there must be lots of players, and that improve them positions out there.
Well, the way I look at it, Eddie Howe did say this is the most removed he's been from the transfer process.
Yeah.
Is he trying to distance himself from an unsuccessful summer? Maybe, but we know Paul Mitchell's come in and taken charge of that side of things for the most part. So for me, if Eddie Howe's saying, we haven't been able to find the right players, the buck sort of stops with Paul Mitchell in convincing Eddie Howe there are other players out there other than Mark Guehi. That's the job. You have to find the right players, and I agree with you. Surely Mark Guehi, with all due respect to him, and I'm saying that a lot, is not the be all and end all of centre backs. Come on.
No,
when
no,
you're spending £70 million.
See, when
there are other defenders out there.
We're no scout, and it knows that our job's to identify transfer targets for Newcastle United, but if I was put in that position...
Well, I looked, didn't I? I said, ooh, who played well against Newcastle last season? Nico Schlotterbeck, Borussia Dortmund. He'd probably cost about the same amount as Mark Guehi. And it's just like, you can almost just look at players.
There's a massive scouting network, and this is another sort of frustration, because Newcastle, when they talk about PSR, actually cost themselves a little bit, because they're insistent on signing sort of Premier League proven players. But Premier League proven players, or English players, come at a premium cost. So the sort of the reluctance to look abroad and get players from abroad for, because look, I can't name any players here, but I imagine there's a Mark Guehi sort of type playing in Europe somewhere, like you get for half the price. Of course, I'm all speaking hypothetically here, but yeah, the Mark Guehi money was too much, and it got towards the end where it almost felt like they just had to do it because they'd pursued that target. But the price is never comfortable with me. It probably wasn't comfortable with a lot of you guys watching this as well. But yeah, it was the man that Eddie Howe wanted, so it was important that they got him. And obviously that hasn't happened, and they're in a worse position for it, because, as I say, they're going into the season now with a squad that is pretty well, the starting 11 that is pretty much untouched. Yeah.
Eddie Howe simply said, basically, they haven't been able to find the right player, because there'll be people in the comments going, well, why hasn't Eddie Howe been asked? Why didn't they sign this player or look to the continent? He said, in his eyes, they haven't been able to find
and that's a manager say, like, we can give our opinion and question Eddie Howe, which I hope you guys watching, because there's been a lot of criticism I've seen from sort of journalists about not holding Eddie Howe to account. It was every single journalist in that room today, particularly on the written section, asked the transfer on questions and challenged Eddie Howe on why the club hadn't made signings. So I hope people watching that will realise that, we do hold the manager to account when
at the right time.
Yeah, at the right time. We can't always. There's times when you've got to pick your battles, I would say, in this job, where there is...
Look, we said at the end of it, there wasn't necessarily strong lines in terms of Eddie Howe's answers. Sometimes you go into a press conference going, I want to get a line, I want to get something on injuries, like I did last week on Callum Wilson. Sometimes you just have to hold him to account. And ask that question, did we get much back? I definitely didn't from Eddie Howe. I asked.
No.
The club have had 2 transfer windows since Champions League, failed to make a major signing. How is that progress? And Eddie Howe didn't really answer it. He didn't really admit progress.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot there, but I think in the main it was probably the same message, where it was the right players at the right price. We ultimately couldn't find that. PSR was a big say-so.
But PSR was another question I asked Eddie Howe. It's self-inflicted. The PSR rules are not new, but Eddie Howe made it sound like they are new. Like, oh well, they've only came into sort of the club's thinking since Nottingham Forest and Everton got the points deductions.
So yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that probably sort of heightened people's...
there's teeth to this. Yeah. Davin Eales, that's a quote from him, actually said, there's teeth to it. We need to sharpen up. But yeah, Newcastle PSR was always clear.
Well, that's a problem. Newcastle, if Eddie Howe wants to talk about PSR, and he meant name drop Brighton as being very good sellers in there. He was asked about sort of the competition this season, when it was like the West Ham, Aston Villa, Brighton, about them evolving, and he mentioned Brighton as being notoriously good for selling. Newcastle haven't been notoriously good sellers. The only substantial sale that they've made were both enforced, and it was £33 million for Yakuba Minta and a supposed £35 million for Elliot Anderson, which is actually a club record sale joint with Andy Carroll. So,
although in reality, when you're signing a now 4th choice goalkeeper the other way, that 35 million is probably closer to 50.
Yeah, there was. I mean, it was a PSR trade-off. That's all it was. Odysseus Lacademos might never play for this football club, but it's probably saved them 10 points this season. They almost just had to do it, but
how many points is not signing a player?
Yeah, we wouldn't be talking about goalkeepers if Newcastle just done the improvements that they needed to the squad. Yeah. The goalkeepers, as I've said, is probably such a minor thing, but it's turned into a big thing.
We've been speaking about Lloyd Kelly being a great signing, but now because he's the best signing they've made, or the marquee signing,
it's 2.
That can't be the limit.
It's technically 4 new signings. Lewis Hall obviously had the money goes on.
I'm glad Eddie Howe didn't discuss Lewis Hall or Sandro Tonali as if they were new signings.
Yeah, I thought he
didn't go there.
Yeah, when I asked about the squad being better, I thought he might have mentioned Sandro Tonali, but
he didn't admit the squad were better, but he didn't admit they weren't better either. He said there were areas they wanted to strengthen. i.e. right winger and centre back, that ultimately so far as we speak now they haven't done.
I asked him about that. I said, is your squad sort of stronger? Have you fallen short of the transfer window? And he said he wanted to be positive about it. Spoke highly of the players that he's got,
which he has to.
And he has to, yeah. Look, I think Eddie Howe was frustrated that hadn't been able to get the player that he wanted. He wanted Marquis and hadn't been able to get him. He'll be sitting there frustrated, and he'll know that they've fallen short of strength in two key positions, which everyone's been saying for a while now. The right hand side and the centre back. They haven't done that. It's massively disappointing. But what I will say, people might not like the answers from Eddie Howe today, but I actually thought he addressed the media really well. He came in, I think he knew where the line of questioning was going to go, and I thought he handled the questions really well. He didn't his first expressions were quite strong. He didn't shy away from any questions. He took them, he answered them, and as I say, people might like the answers, but he was held accountable. He stood up. And I think people above him now should come out and speak. I think that's the
next step in him.
That is like Eddie Howe can only answer what he can. I think it's really important after this transfer window, which, let's be honest, has been a failed transfer window. Either Paul Mitchell, or definitely Paul Mitchell, because I mean to speak to him yet, and Darren Eales come out and explain the situation, because, as I say, for a club that portrays itself as being very, very ambitious, hasn't delivered. Or hasn't shown the actions of an ambitious club, and I think that needs to be explained.
Yeah, well, we spoke to Darren Eales at the start of the summer after the whole PSR debacle, and the message was, as Darren Eales always gives off, almost like a beacon of positivity. Yep, we're set, we've got money to spend, that's over. It was a difficult situation, but now we're looking forward to Champions League, European football. The lack of qualifying could be a blessing in disguise. Actions speak louder than words, and I think we're seeing the sort of results and fallout of that. And fans aren't stupid. They will know actions speak louder than words. They won't eat up everything someone says unless there's sort of tangible evidence that those things are actually happening. And yeah, you raise a good point with Paul Mitchell. We haven't spoke to him on the record yet, and it'll be interesting to know how his first couple of months have been, because I imagine they've been tough, and what he's done, really.
Yeah.
With all due respect, I'll say that word again, to Paul Mitchell. He's come in, he's been here for 2 months. Newcastle haven't made a signing that is a Paul Mitchell signing, because Willa Sula came in, and Eddie Howe straight away gave credit to Jason Tindall for sort of making that deal happen.
Yeah, I mean, if I want to try and be positive, I would caveat Paul Mitchell he came in at the start of a transfer window after the PSR situation has unfolded. I don't think we'll really start to see his impact until future transfer windows. I think he's came in many ways probably didn't want to upset the current dynamic that was in place. Eddie Howe spoke about that in Germany when he was like evidently really reluctant to see changes at the top of the club. I still think them relationships are being formed or fought out. It's just unfortunate. I say Paul Mitchell's came in with a transfer window where they've needed signings and haven't been able to do it. So, maybe you could make an excuse for that. I'm not going to do that. But it's certainly, as I say, in the future transfer windows, they need to start showing action and showing the actions of the club, as I say. Because people from the outside, they go, oh, look, Newcastle fans inflated expectations again, exceed expectations again. It doesn't exceed expectations because you've got your CEO of a football club saying
expectations are created by the actions of all the words of the club.
Yeah. If Darren Eales hadn't came out and said in the summer that they want to go and qualify for the Champions League again, and that was a name and whatever, then look, maybe we couldn't have many complaints, because we could have complaints, but I don't know. I was trying to make a point. I've gone brain
head loss. No, but yeah. It's just about holding people to account for what they say. Darren Eales is talking about Champions League and Europe and the return of Sandro Tonali and how great it's going to be and everything like that. So you, as the CEO of the football club, he's in charge and he's saying those things. So
it's almost like what I was trying to say was Newcastle fans say they want to qualify for the Champions League and the owner doesn't, then you can go, well, actually your expectations are exceeded because they haven't made the signs to do that. But the CEO has literally came out and said that.
And expectations are obviously naturally elevated by the actions of the club, which is 2 seasons ago qualifying for the Champions League, finishing 4th. Is the squad stronger than when it came fourth?
It
probably is, but there's injuries, isn't there? So
yeah, I mean it probably is. Is it? I mean, is it?
It probably is, but I think the fourth place finish was just almost a little bit of a freak season. No. I mean, like Newcastle overachieved that season massively. No one was expecting Newcastle to come fourth that season. So that's what I mean by it was a freak season. They exceeded expectations. Last season was par for the course.
Yeah.
But by overachieving the previous season, expectations have elevated, and that's almost maybe not an expectation, but you wouldn't rule it out now, whereas maybe 2 seasons ago you would have been like, would do very, very well to finish top 4.
Because they've came so far so quick. But I think but the challenge is when you come far so quick, you've got to build on it. You can't just go, we finished Champions League 2 years ago, so an 8th place finish is fine the next season. When you finish 4th, and the ambition naturally needs to be going
It's been
higher.
A more drawn out version of finishing 5th and signing Vernon and Anita, isn't it?
It actually has. Like, I mean, that was bad, the Vernon and Anita transfer window, and they qualified for Europe and signed one player.
Who didn't improve the starting line.
But I say they have got ambitions, as I say, to qualify for Europe again this year. And have they got the players to do it? Look, they probably have got the squad to go and at least challenge.
They need a lot of luck though, and I think you create your own luck in a lot of ways, and by doing that you by creating your own luck, you're making signings, you're improving the squad. They'll need Alexander Isak to stay fit all season really, because Callum Wilson isn't going to, and Willis Sula hasn't scored a goal at the top 2 levels and is a project player, an up and comer. They'll need Bruno to stay fit, which he usually does, but if he doesn't, that midfield starts to look a bit suspect. Sandro Tonali, hopefully he stays fit. Joe Willock, there's question marks over his fitness. And it's Anthony Gordon, need him to stay fit. There's so many players where you just think, it's like going into the new season crossing your fingers, and I don't like that. I think that's where a lot of the unease comes from.
It's just, I mean, as I say, that you need to strengthen in transfer windows. I keep repeating myself. You need to strengthen every transfer window.
The minimum,
and they haven't done it.
The minimum objective of any football club heading into the transfer window is to end it in a stronger position than what you started it. And Newcastle, in my opinion, have not done that. They've lost 2 promising young players who would have been in and around the starting 11, and made 1 free transfer that may or may not improve the starting 11 in Lloyd Kelly, who is also historically an injury prone player. So I think in that respect it has been a failure, but we'll timestamp it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, talking about crossing your fingers, hopefully this video dates terribly and we don't know what we're talking about, and Newcastle have made some great signings, but is that going to happen? We'd say, as speaking now, probably.
I was going to say one sign I haven't touched upon actually, which could happen today. I mean, I want to put this in just in case it does happen. James Trafford.
Oh yes.
Which will wait till the end. But
don't get me started.
But that would be I mean, that's not. I mean, look, that would still be technically signing nobody, because it would be a.
It doesn't improve the starting 11, and then you've got 6 goalkeepers.
Yeah, so everything we said here doesn't change on the basis that James Trafford joins the club, but just that throw it in there. If there's movement in the goalkeeping department with Vlachodimos and Dubravka maybe, but I'm doubtful of that one.
But the question mark, it's again the right players. Okay, James Trafford for what, 16-20 million £. Aaron Ramsdale, a more established player that Eddie Howe knows, going for less than that.
I think it was 18 million up front, and then it was like add-ons over.
I mean, obviously, you talk about the right players. Aaron Ramsdale would very much be a competitor to Nick Pope, and does Eddie Howe necessarily want that? Whereas James Trafford would be a backup very much to Nick Pope. So it's all about the squad dynamic and signing the right players. But on paper that just looks a bit, for a player who has been a long-term target in Newcastle historically as well, in Ramsdale, who Eddie Howe knows. It's silly. We're rambling now.
It would be, I mean, imagine it was 5 new summer signings, not including Lewis Hall, and 3 of them are goalkeepers. Would that be unprecedented for the amount of number of goalkeepers signed in the transfer window? It might be
3 goalkeepers, and none of them are actually starters.
Yeah. But look, as I say, that goalkeeping situation doesn't come up in conversation if Newcastle go and strengthen the start 11, and they haven't done that, and there's real frustration and disappointment among all you guys watching.
Let your frustrations out in the comments.
Yeah.
Direct it at us if you want, but we'd prefer it if you didn't.
But we did ask the questions that we feel are relevant.
Yeah.
I didn't walk away from there today thinking that that's the...
You got it. There's money to spend. There's money to
is.
spend and they haven't spent it. And Eddie Howe wouldn't admit whether Newcastle are actually moving forward as a football club, which was the question I tried to get out of him, but he wasn't really biting.
Well, as I say, the actions don't suggest they are moving forward.
No.
You move forward by evolving as a squad, and as I say, the squad hasn't really evolved this summer. You can go back and say, yeah, well, look, Tonali's returned this season, which in many ways, and I know it's a phrase like a new signing, I hate it, but he is, because he only made 12 appearances last year, and he will be like an injection of everything in that midfield. But he's still an existing player. They still signed him last summer. So
the expectation when they signed Sandro Tonali was not that he'd be banned for 10 months. They expected him to deliver.
He'll be technically a summer signing in 12 months' time.
That wasn't the plan.
So maybe by sort of like default and players returning and whatever, Tonali being the main one I'm talking about, the squad has improved. But in terms of the transfer window, they haven't done what they need to do in the transfer window. They committed money to signing Sandro Tonali 12 months ago. So it's been a real disappointing window. It felt underwhelming at large parts. I was sort of trying to reserve judgment until the end of the transfer window. It's got the end of the transfer window and there's still no one in after Willisula, which is a transfer that makes sense because it's back up to Callum Wilson and Isak.
A perfect signing, but he shouldn't be one of your best signings.
But not your last signing.
No.
Where that's a squad filler, that's great. He's got potential. He may go on to be a fantastic player. We don't know. But then it's about going out and signing a ready-made player who can immediately prove the team. And as I've said several times, they haven't done that, and I'm really disappointed about that. So, yeah.
I think we've got to wrap it up there. We've spent 30 minutes talking about how Newcastle...
30 minutes repeating myself, essentially.
Eddie Howe was repeating himself for about 45, wasn't he? So, yeah, that's it. We've made a video because there's relative confidence from us that Newcastle won't do anything major.
Yeah, honestly...
I'll be ringing you at 11 o'clock tonight going, we've got to make another one. But
take that video down, Mark Guehi's side.
Right, unless our phones go off in the next hour or so, you'll be watching this video.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you like what we do, of course, you know where the like, comment, share, subscribe buttons are. The thanks button, of course. Sorry, Jordan, I'm taking your job. So
I know, yeah, I'm trying to...
Sorry.
I like you doing the sponsor.
I know, sorry. Do you want to do the sponsor?
You do the sponsor as well.
4 Rivers Financial Planning. Yeah, for all your holistic financial needs and pension needs, advice, all that, check out the link in the description. The sponsor all our Geordie journals. I was going to say Newcastle United. Newcastle United need some sponsors. Get that PSR. Yeah, sponsor all our long form Geordie journals videos, so check them out if you're interested. So we'll wrap up there. We'll be at St James's Park with Liam. We'll get his thoughts on the transfer window. I think if he was here, this video would probably be another hour.
And that would be an hour rant.
Because he's been away, but he's been busy, hasn't he? He's been messaging us. He's been
busy on Twitter as well.
Getting his feelings out there. Yeah, check Liam out on Twitter for his feelings, his comment piece on the transfer window on Newcastle World as well. And stay up to date, if there are any updates, on Newcastle World and Shields Gazette from myself and Jordan, as well as on social media as well. So, you want to wrap up there, Jordan?
Am I wrap? What am I saying here?
Just
yeah.
It's been a great summer.
It really hasn't. It's been a great summer of travelling, transfers. Yeah, not.
But we're back at St James's Park for Spurs, where it's a tricky game.
Yeah,
historically been quite a good fixture at home against Spurs, but need a win.
Yeah, and that's one way to silence the... I wouldn't say silence, but it can calm the noise if Newcastle go and get a win on Sunday. They could calm the noise altogether if they have a very good first half of the season, and then
results are what matters. But you can only react to.
You can only react to how we're feeling right now, and there's a big air of frustration. There's pressure on There's pressure on to improve on the pitch. It's
all about belief, isn't it? And like, if the club are getting results, that's fine. If the club aren't getting results, but if you believe in the project, then you sort of give it a bit more time, a bit more patience. As we did when Eddie Howe first came in and he won one of his first 10 games. You were like, no, we'll have a transfer window, we'll progress, and that will happen. Now the belief is waning, and if the results don't come, then that becomes a problem situation. But if the results do come and the belief isn't quite there, that belief grows. I'm waffling,
and we'll end it there.